YouTube. I hope you're well. I was going to make a quick video, hopefully quick video, about why I am vegan. As I said before, I don't intend to beat you around the head with veganism. There are only a couple of videos I'd be interested in making really, and there won't be any clips of animal slaughter or anything like that in this video, so you don't need to worry about that. I'm not really aiming to convert anyone with this video, although if you watch this video and you decide that maybe like meatless Mondays would be an idea, or like maybe you're vegetarian and it makes you think more about possibly going vegan, that would be brilliant. But really this is just why I'm vegan. So I'd say that my number one reason for being vegan is the ethical consideration, that is to say the animal welfare consideration. 60 billion land animals are used or slaughtered every year, and trillions of marine animals meet the same fate, many of them in completely unacceptable conditions to me. I actually don't have a problem with the basic idea of a human eating an animal, or an animal really that's just an animal eating another animal. To me, that's to take a moral stance on that, or like the history of humanity as having been meat eaters, would be like taking a moral stance on whether or not a lion's wrong for killing a gazelle. It was a necessary part of our evolution and survival, and it allowed us to evolve to the point that we're at today. It allowed us to evolve, in fact, to such a point that we now have the nutritional information and the scientific technology to be able to enable a diet which is completely free from harm to animals and killing of animals, which is amazing. So my problem, I might one day have a homestead and keep like rare breed pigs that I keep their whole lives in like happy, good conditions, and you know, my repulsion with meat eating as it exists today has nothing to do with the actual act. I know this is unusual for a vegan, but has nothing much to do with the act of killing an animal to eat it. I think that's something that should be limited and done with respect, but it's not the act of killing an animal that I object to. It's industrialized, wide-scale, 60 billion animals a year, and it's subjected to an industrialized farming, intensive, cruel practices. I'm not going to go into them here beyond wishing that, you know, that didn't exist, and leading by example, I guess. But if you are a meat eater or you eat dairy, you have an ethical responsibility to research meat production, dairy production, ensure that what you're doing is in line with your own values, and as long as it is, then I put no beef. No beef yet. There are major environmental considerations for me. The population of the planet, human population, has doubled since the 1960s. Meat production has quadrupled since the 1960s. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations predicts that by 2050 meat production will have doubled again. It takes 3 times the amount of water to feed a meat eater than it does a vegan. A vegan diet requires 1/3 of the land needed for conventional Western diets, and it's estimated that 3.5 billion humans could be fed with the plant food that we currently feed to livestock. So for me, as a privileged Western person with the opportunity to select between the different diets, it feels very, it feels that it's very much lacking in integrity for me as a socialist in a world where 70% of people live on less than $1 a day, and many people starve to death every year, to be eating a diet which makes it less possible for us to provide easily and cheaply for those populations from our privileged position. So and also, of course, like like any informed human being on the planet, I'm concerned about climate change. I'm concerned with reducing my carbon footprint. I don't, for example, drive a vehicle of my own. I use public transport. I recycle and compost. I try not to buy things in too much packaging. I try not to order things from overseas. I try to think about buying locally. I'm not like perfect by any means, but I try to, you know, be conscious of these things. And for me to then just be slamming the meat with every meal just isn't consistent with my environmental goals. And when I started to research the health benefits, it doesn't seem that you're going to live longer as a vegan. But it does seem that you reduce that you'll be leaner, you'll have, you know, lower BMI, you'll have a reduced risk, thusly, of heart disease and high blood pressure and colorectal prostate cancer, and all number of sort of diabetes type 2 for sure, and all number of other major sort of killers of people on a Western diet. I personally have found that my acne seems to have cleared up quite a lot since I went vegan. Still not perfect, but a lot better. I think cutting out milk helped a lot with that. Or maybe just it's the increased focus on, you know, eating lots and lots of fruit and veg, which I wasn't necessarily doing as a meat eater, and just sort of now do out of necessity as a vegan. Being vegan also ties into my socialism. I consider myself to be a Marxist socialist, well, a Marxist socialist feminist, I guess. That sounds a bit like a sort of weird sect of witchhood or something. In terms of socialism, it's well documented that the mental and physical health of workers in abattoirs is at risk because of the kind of work that they do. I'll quote here from a thesis by a researcher at the University of Colorado entitled "Killing for a Living: Psychological and Physiological Effects of Alienation of Food Production on Slaughterhouse Workers." Quote, a high speed at the disassembly line directly correlates with the injury risk rates, earning slaughterhouse establishments the title of one of the most dangerous workplaces. Slaughterhouse workers are also at risk of perpetuation-inducted traumatic stress, which is a form of post-traumatic stress disorder that results from situations where the concerned subjects was a participant in creating the traumatic situation. A sort of special type of post-traumatic stress disorder if you have been involved in causing the harm. Slaughterhouses are, for me, where capitalism and the disregard for life and nature, you know, the planet, the environment, really kind of clash most visibly, where you've got slaughterhouse workers being paid really badly, being paid on commission so that they're encouraged to work as fast as possible with heavy sharp machinery and heavy sharp instruments in a way that causes terrible animal welfare violations, obviously for the animals, and also a violation of sort of their own sense of humanity. They have to develop such a psychologically thick skin to be able to deal with the slaughter day after day, that they can often end up with long-term psychological issues. There's a very gendered discourse around meat eating, like eat your red meat boys, you'll grow up big and strong, lots of testosterone, loads of protein, and yeah, bodybuilding and all of that kind of thing, and vegans are pussies that are weaklings and can't go out in the sunlight. I feel like our ancestors would weep if they could see the way that we treat our prey compared to the way that they did, the reverence and respect that they had for their prey, their hunt. When you look into it, I can't watch it, I just find it, it repulses me. I watch animals die at human hands sometimes and don't feel as utterly repulsed as I do when I see sort of exposés of the abattoir, like the meat industry. If you're interested in knowing what goes on in the meat industry, you could watch a popular documentary called Earthlings. It's pretty grueling. It's like, yeah, a lot of like video of really horrible stuff that goes on, but it will, if you want eye-opening experience like that. If you want a more gentle introduction, you could check out Unnatural Vegan. She's great. She's got loads of good videos on veganism. I will link her down below, and I hope you're well, and have a good evening. Thanks. Bye.